Welcome to episode 101 of Instant Expertise Marketing. We are kicking off the new year by doubling down on our commitment to helping you produce marketing and sales results faster and easier with AI. I'm Yvette Brown, co-founder of X Promos. I became an entrepreneur at 23 by starting a promotions agency with my then 29-year-old business partner, Shari Nomadi. Shari and I not only use generative AI every single day, but we're continuing to urge all knowledge workers to prioritize upskilling on AI right now because your job depends on it, because that's kind of where we're at.
Absolutely. And I am Shari Nomadi. Yvette and I approach business from opposite ends of the spectrum, still to this day, 36 years later.
Still.
But we always come to the same conclusions on how we will help our clients succeed. As Yvette and I continue to teach and explore how we can use AI to accelerate business, we are continually discovering new use cases that we want to share with you. And that's exactly what we're going to do today. And boy, is it exciting.
We're super pumped about this one, I have to say. But
yeah,
quick backstory. For those of you who have created any kind of lead magnets for your prospects or incentives, whether it's white papers, special reports, frameworks, assessments, or something else, you undoubtedly already know that when those types of elements are interactive, your response rates go up.
And if you did not know that, then congratulations. That's your first takeaway today.
Exactly.
And that's because multiple studies have consistently shown that interactivity increases your response rates. So why isn't everybody doing it? Well, really, it's because it does take more time and we never seem to have enough. And it usually costs more money, which there's never enough budget for, to create those things rather than just do a static PDF until now.
Yeah, and that's exactly right, Shari. As you can imagine, we have created a ton, and I'm talking a ton of lead magnets as incentives over the years. It's actually at the core of what we excel at, which is connecting audiences to the essence of the brand at every step of the customer journey, from awareness to advocacy.
Exactly. And so we have the incentive part down solid since we've been doing that for 36 years. But what we are discovering is that the plain vanilla AI models, like Chat, Claude, Copilot, etc., they actually have the ability to make your lead magnet interactive if you just know how to talk to it.
And that's exactly it. And last week, I realized that our AI training that we offer could use a quiz, like one of those BuzzFeed personality quizzes that people love to take, which, by the way, people love to learn more about themselves. So integrating personalization into your lead magnet in any way is a great approach. So anyway, we hypothesized that we now have two different audiences for these two main products that we're promoting starting the year, and we wanted to help bring attention to these.
So we sat down with AI to get some help in exploring our theory about these audiences and to see how well it would respond.
Yep, and in short, we were blown away. In about an hour, maybe 45 minutes, AI was able to help tighten up our personas, but it went way beyond that. It actually helped develop a working quiz, and then it spit out the HTML that we needed so we could put it right up on our website.
So we estimate that getting it to that point would have taken probably, I don't know, what do you think about 20 hours realistically without AI?
I would say easily yes, because before AI, we would have had to research to build the profile for sure. Then we would brainstorm the questions and noodle those for a while. We would work with, the idea to get the tone that we wanted, that type of thing. And then when we finally got that creative part done, we would send it off to a developer to create the quiz and like the back end HTML part. That would go back and forth, probably a couple rounds before it got done. And then we'd have to upload it to a landing page and get everything connected.
Yeah, well, maybe even a little more than 20 hours. But in this scenario, it was live in what, under 2 hours?
Yep, pretty much. And, to be fair, we wanted to sit on this for a bit and we wanted to noodle it a little bit. We wanted to do a little bit more updating with our colors. We wanted to add some other stuff around it. But the fact that it could do this heavy lifting and really get to something high quality is a real game changer for sales and marketing teams. And, I know everybody uses the term game changer, but like, oh my gosh, this is really significant because the aha moment here is that this is giving us the ability to iterate and test high quality interactive content in hours, not weeks.
And this is why we say AI makes your work faster, easier, and way better. As a marketing or a salesperson, this enables you to do things that you would have never had the time or the budget to do before, even though you've always known it would have moved the needle more.
Yeah. And Shari, why don't we walk through how I did this, right? Because it really illustrates our point that you need to use your own expertise and apply it to what you're doing. And this is why we talk about, tapping into your superpower. And I'm going to show you how we collaborated with our AI to make this happen, because this is something you can do right now using your own expertise, knowing what you need to get to. You too can do this. There's no doubt about it.
Actually, I think that's a great idea. We're just going to kind of like open the curtain and let them see. So let's do it.
All right. That's awesome. Okay. Let me do this. If you are following along on audio, we will do our best to explain what we're doing as we go along. And if you're following us along on YouTube, you'll be able to see it live and in person. So if you can see my screen now, this is kind of where I started. I'm not going to go through all the details because it's kind of a long one, but I'm going to give you the highlights of how I approached it, right? So I started out addressing the problem and kind of what I wanted to do. So I said, I want to drive engagement of business professionals to buy my AI training, right? I think they fall into these two categories. So can you evaluate this assessment of these categories and build a persona for me? And as you can see, it thought for a couple seconds, literally thought for a couple seconds. And it's like, okay, yeah, we think that your people are falling into two categories, either foundational learners or practical implementers. And then it went through this whole SWOT analysis, which I didn't ask for. And it started giving me this buyer persona for each. It gave it a name, Innovative Irene and Ethan, Efficient Ethan. And then it made some recommendations on how to engage it, which wasn't what I was looking for, but I just was like, okay, cool, do your thing. And then I came back and I said, okay, well, let me give you a little bit more information because I didn't do a great job at telling you about what these training courses were. So we have the first option, which is this 9-hour, key foundations of AI that gives you everything to do so you can become black belt certified. The other option is more role specific and it focuses on tasks, KPIs, and key learnings. And you can do this, asynchronously an hour at a time. Does this influence what you would recommend? Again, it thinks for a couple seconds and it's like, okay, let me tweak a little bit. So it comes back and it reevaluates a little bit. Honestly, it didn't make a lot of changes. And, again, it's made these recommendations and I'm like, okay, that's all interesting. But again, I really want to get to a little bit more detail and then get to this quiz. So I say, well, since you've done this, can you give me a list of personal attributes that might, might affect these guys. And it came back with psychographics on each one of them, right? And behavior and motivations to kind of just help me as a creative get in the mindset of who we are talking to. So it summarized all that for me, which is great. And then I said, hey, are you familiar with those viral, what character are you kind of personality quizzes? Can you just tell, don't do anything, just say yes or no. And the reason you do this is because, you're working with a giant brain that has all the world's knowledge in it. You really need to hone it in, right? Like you need to get it focused. So I wanted it to be thinking in the context of those kind of like BuzzFeed quizzes. And it said, yeah, I know those. And I said, great. Well, using that framework, can you create a similarly engaging list of 10 questions that would clearly identify you in one camp or the other, right? For the purposes of guiding you to an AI solution. And it's like, sure, here we go. And then it starts cranking off these questions. And and so then it kind of explained what would happen if you wanted to do that. And I'm like, these questions are good, but they're kind of serious on work, and I really want them to make more engaging, right? Because we as an agency know that we need to make things fun, even when we're dealing with B2B client, especially if we're dealing with a B2B engagement. So it's like, okay, cool. So it started to make some little fun things about how you spend your weekend and this and that. And so I said, okay, that's great, but now we're still not quite balanced where we want to be. So I still want business, but I want a little bit more fun and snarkiness. And it's like, cool, here we go. So again, started delivering these to me, with these kind of answers that are like, ideas are scattered, but so am I, creative chaos, whatever. So again, I am thinking with this, I am going along, I'm processing what it's sharing with me. And so I decided at this point, you know what? Let me be more direct with you. Now that I've kind of seen what you can do, let's do 3 personal questions, 4 career questions, and 3 work questions, because I felt like that would be a good balance. So it's like, cool, we've got it. So it gives me a whole bunch of these. And I think, you know what? I think I want a little bit more. I want to give you 10 more of these, and I want you to put them in a table for me, because I kind of wanted to see them and evaluate them. So it put in this whole table together for me. And we ended up with, I think, about 20 questions here, because I asked for some more. And, it is, in the meantime, it's still giving me a bunch of things that I can do to make it better or whatever. And I'm kind of ignoring it a little bit. So I kind of got to this, and then I thought, you know what? I think I'd also like some quotes that would resonate with each person, right? Because I know that quotes are like one of those things you can sort of use to get people to nod their head of like, yeah, I'm totally buy that. And so it did that for me as well. Gave me a bunch of quotes for Irene and Ethan. And again, it's making suggestions. I'm like, cool. Well, that's great, but put it in a table for me, which it did. This allowed me to put it into a Google Sheet, by the way, so I could kind of track what I'm doing on this thing. So again, it's making suggestions on different things I could do, how I could do social posts. It's really helpful. Now, at this point, things got interesting because I was talking to our AI Transformation Council about this. And someone shared and said, hey, we've been looking at these audiences and we think that there is some other stuff related to this, like Clifton Strengths, the Myers-Briggs, and, Colby tests, like stuff that, it's not in my wheelhouse, I'm familiar with, but I'm like, okay. So I went back and I stopped here and I'm like, hey, you know what? How would these relate to this kind of stuff? And I gave it a little bit of feedback, and it's like, okay, and this time it thought for 5 seconds, which was a lot. And I said, hey, this would really help tighten up and make these frameworks even better. Because, my AI loves me, right? It's very friendly. And so it goes and it, sort of starts integrating this further into my buyer personas for Ethan and Irene. And it gives me some reasons why this is even better. And so it helps refine what this looks like. And gives me a conclusion. I'm like, okay, that's great. And then I said, now that we've done this, would you change those 20 questions and 10 quotes? It thought about it and it reevaluated it. And it's like, okay, yeah, we would a little bit to make sure it's really tight on either one or the other. And so having gone through this and then looking at these, originally, I got to be honest, I was going to evaluate. I actually printed it out somewhere. I was going to evaluate all these questions and try and decide which ones I wanted. I really wanted 11 so that you would clearly fall into one or the other, because it could be 6 and 5. I didn't want to tie. But then I thought, what's wrong with me? Like, AI is smart. And so I said, what would you do? Right? Like, which of these questions is very clearly going to have someone resonate with one side or the other, right? We don't want a lot of mushy middle. We want people to go, yeah, this is me, or this is me, and that's it. So it did that, right? And this was me dropping them back in there. And it's like, okay, here's the 11 questions that I would ask. And I'm like, cool. And I wanted one of them to be a quote. So it included a quote as well. And then it gave me all this rationale, and I'm like, that's cool. And I said, hey, I really like these. Can you give me another quote? Because I want to put that on the results page. And it's like, sure, I'm going to do that for you. And then it gave me an interpretation. Like, in other words, at the end of the quiz, when you are clearly in one category or the other, it gave me a little bit of copy to write with that. And which wasn't bad. Like, it was pretty good of like, hey, you're really better suited for the foundations or the role specific, whatever it is. And so I'm like, cool, cool. And again, it's still giving me suggestions for things to do. And I said, okay, now let's talk about marketing. Like, how I was really torn about whether or not this should be gated or ungated. And so it gave me a bunch of, strategies for that. I felt like ungated was appropriate, but I wanted to see what chat thought about it. And that's pretty much what it came to, but with a lot of big brain thinking on why that was that way. And so I'm like, okay. So basically for me, it verified what my gut told me about how we should approach it. And I felt validated at this point. So now I'm like, okay, that's great. I kind of need some HTML on this. Can you do that? And it's like, thought for a few seconds, and it's like, yes, I can. So literally it kicked out code for me, right? Like, this is the whole HTML code for the quiz. And I looked at this and I'm like, okay, that's pretty darn good. The first round was not bad at all. The only thing I wanted to change out of the gate was like, it had everything like all together, like one big test. And I said, can you just redo it so it's like one question and you can sort of show progress? And it's like, yes, I can. And I'm like, cool, let's do that. And then it also put in these career personal things. I'm like, can take that part out. Then we had a whole conversation about the Irene versus Ethan, because that seemed like that's appropriate for the persona, but not really what I want to call the person. You know what I mean? So me and Chat had a conversation about that and what was appropriate. And we decided to come up with different titles that weren't specific to names. And so then it even explained to me as it went along, here's what I changed, right? So this is me talking about the style. And then it gave me some headlines because I didn't love the headline and I wanted to get to a point where I really liked it. And look, it did these and I'm like, you know what? I don't love these. Try again, right? And this, again, is me brainstorming with it. This is not me just saying, go do it. Now, granted, I may do that different than Shari does because the messaging and the copy matters a lot to me. Right? It's like it's getting that right and really talking to the person is like, it's really important. So I may have overdid it on this section, but I finally came around to something of like, hey, I kind of like this idea of discovering your skill set. Let's do more. So we walked through all of that. And we talked about the call to action button and what that might say. Then I thought about like, how long is it going to take you to do this quiz? Because we don't want to make it too long, right? And I was thinking about maybe putting that in the social posts that support it, right? Like, give us 45 seconds and la, 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 la. So we went through all of this. Well, as you can see, because I know this is going a little bit long. We went through all of these naming conventions, and then we decided, you know what? No, I'm just going to not name it. Let's do a persona. Then we went through some additional changes on this. And again, this is all one big thread that I did, which, by the way, you can come back to this. Like, once you have this chat, you can come back to it later and add to it. So going through all of these, it finally, kicked out the final HTML that I needed. And then it gave us this AI innovator, AI optimizer sort of approach, which we kind of liked. And in the end, I said, great, how do I upload this to my page, right? I know we have Elementor. How do we do that? And it actually gave me the specific instructions on how to do it. This is what we did. And like that, we uploaded it to our site. I made some tweaks to it, and it's pretty much ready to go. It's not officially live because we have some adjustments we're making to the product launch itself, but it's ready to go. And the point is that I can drop this thing out there, we can test this, and we hope that it works really well and we can leave it up for, a long time, but we also have the ability to change this as we go. And this 45 minutes, hour that I spent on this was like really phenomenal.